Yeah, so I'm Shantell Martin, and if I'm going to talk about my practice, it could be a long answer, so I'll try and make that shorter. As an artist, I like to ask questions, and I also like to expose the process as I do that. And so the work is about questioning. It's about expanding this narrative of creativity and freedom, and about sharing that process as an artist. We're in the Denver Art Museum. It's obviously an interesting architectural work itself. And so wanting to utilize that as much as possible, and then it becomes more playful, it becomes more interactive. It's almost the viewer, the audience has to do a little bit of more of the work to find these seeds that are spread throughout the museum. The process, you could say, for me, is just essentially understanding the space and understanding the opportunities of the canvases. And then, once you know what those areas are, it comes to the execution. I know what the canvas is now. I have templates of all these walls and of all these shapes. And now I'm going to sit down and almost meditate and draw. I might be inspired by some facts or keywords or some thoughts. That might inspire or almost be like a springboard for when I do sit back and start drawing, but it doesn't lead it. And that's because I want it to be what it wants to be. I want to allow it versus force it. So the show is words and lines, and we give words so much importance. And I like to point out sometimes that words are just made up of lines. And lines, we give them importance, but we don't give them as much importance as words. And I love it sometimes within my shows. Things might be spelt wrong, sometimes intentionally, sometimes unintentionally, but people have such a reaction or a reflex to that. And I've had events or projects where people will chase me down and say, Shantell, you spelt that wrong. And I say, oh, great, thank you. There's this sense that if you're going to correct the words, correct the lines. Because how can you have creative freedom in one area, but you want to control another area? Also, being a dyslexic and a proud dyslexic, this is something we face every day. It's this pressure of spelling, it's this pressure with words, it's this pressure of importance. And then in today's climate or in today's sphere, you see how words are taken to other levels, politically or culturally or in other aspects. These are these things that we raise up and we almost worship in a way. And so it's just about pointing that out and saying, relax, step back, appreciate the creative process, and maybe just reflect a little bit more on where that emotional baggage is coming from. The work is inviting, and I'm not trying to make anything that's dark and deep and meaningful that a curator needs to explain for you to understand it. It is provoking, but it is also something that is accessible because a lot of the work is just created with a pen. And what's the most accessible object that we all have? It's a pen or a pencil. So I'm not doing anything that you or anyone else cannot do. And I recognize as a career, I draw. I do something so simple, but this pen, this tool, has taken me around the world. It's taken me to museums, it's taken me to institutions. So that tool, that pen symbolizes hard work, and it symbolizes progress, and it symbolizes putting one foot in the other and never giving up. Always, I hope that visitors smile, but also I hope that some of this grows within them. So when you see something that says eat well or drink well, or you see something that says help build clean wells, or where you see something that says are you really being true, or where you see something and it asks you are you the real you, and so these things act as seeds. So maybe right at first they're not digested, but secondly or thirdly or in the future, these are things that start to sink in.